something is going wrong, right? There's a problem. Okay? Isn't that why you have stopped every time you stop? Has everybody seen, a medical machine? They hook a guy's heart or something up to a machine and it goes, those kind of things? All right. So let's say you're hooked up to one of those, and here's what your life looks like. See, this is how my life always looked when I was drinking. See, and this gets worse and worse and worse, so I got to stop. All right, and what happens to this line as soon as I stop? Yeah, it starts doing this. See, things smooth out somewhat. Is that true about you? See, once you stop drinking, do things generally, calm down some? No. Okay. All right, and what happens to a real alcoholic after they have stopped? They start. They start again. It's pretty true of you? Is that your experience, looking back on your drinking career? All this shit goes on, you stop drinking, things smooth out somewhat. Start drinking again, what happens now? Does that start again? See? Worse? Alright, so most of us have that kind of an experience. So we come into Alcoholics Anonymous, see, and we look up here on the wall, generally before we ever buy a big book or even know that it exists. See, and we read what's on the wall. We go to the second step. It says, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to what? We make an immediate decision or conclusion. See, that this is pretty nuts. If I ever do it again, I will be what? See? Because the insanity is what goes on with me while I'm drinking, while I'm doing the drugs. Anybody in here ever thought that? Yep. See? That the insanity of alcoholism is what happens while you're drinking and while you're using it. See? During the well-known stages of the spree. Right? Now the book tells us, see, that the insanity is the mental state that precedes the relapse into drinking. On this little graph, where is the relapse? All right? What is the condition of the alcoholic prior to relapse? The sober alcoholic is what? Okay, and that's why 90% of us are more drinking here. See, the insanity that is talked about in step 2 is not what happens when you're drinking or when you're doing drugs. The insanity is that the book talks about is what's going on with all of us in these rooms with the plug in the jug. See, that person is insane. What? Obviously, this is the crux of the problem. See, what happens if you remove the insanity that starts the alcoholic drinking again? This will never occur. That problem solves itself. See, that will never happen again if you never take the first drink. See? But all real alcoholics will take the first drink. See? So the insanity is what's going on sober. Remember Bill's story, all the times he was sober and then started drinking again? See? Where was his real insanity? When he was sober. See? Remember all the strange mental blank spots we marked in the book? See? Remember all the statements about the alcoholic doesn't think at all or doesn't think correctly? Sober alcoholic, see, who thinks he's got this under control. Okay, so is the sentence clear to you? We shall describe some of the mental states, that's in the mind, that precede a relapse into drinking. This is when you're sober. For obviously this is the crux of the problem. Crux means the deciding point, see, or the main argument. Everybody got that? Okay. What sort of thinking, where does thinking go on? In the mind. Dominates an alcoholic. The word dominates means to rule by a superior power. So what sort of thinking dominates an alcoholic? How many alcoholics we got in here? Put your name where you see the word alcoholic there. What sort of thinking dominates an alcoholic who repeats time after time? If you repeat something time after time, what does that mean? chronic. See? The desperate experiment of what? First drink. Okay. Friends who have reasoned with him after a spree which has brought him to the point of divorce or bankruptcy are mystified. Have you ever mystified anybody? Have you ever been mystified? Are mystified when he walks directly into a saloon, a crack house, a shooting gallery, wherever you do what you do? See? Have you ever done that? Blam. See? Why does he? What is he thinking? See? What's this guy's problem? See? And what you're going to notice, see, what we're going to find here is probably not what you're going to expect. Okay, our first example is a friend we shall call Jim. All right, now what I want you to notice as we go through the examples of Jim the car salesman and Fred the accountant in the rest of this chapter is that these guys are pretty high up on the doom curve. See, these are not sleazebag guys who've been on the street for 20 years, you know, and doing all that kind of stuff. See, these are not stereotypical alcoholics. These are people with families and jobs, kids, see, money in the bank, respected in a couple of cases, all that sort of stuff. First example is a friend we shall call Jim. This man has a charming wife and family. He inherited a lucrative automobile agency. He had a commendable World War record. He's a good salesman. Everybody likes him. He's an intelligent man, normal so far as we can see, except for what? What do we call that? Restless, irritable, and discontent. Doctor's opinion. Okay. He did no drinking until he was 35. This mystifies me. I was just about to die at age 35. This guy's just getting started. In a few years, he became so violent when intoxicated that he had to be, in Starting Point or Charter Hospital. He had to be committed. On leaving Charter Hospital, he came into contact with us. Okay? So here's a couple of guys from AA. They go 12-step old Jim. We told him what we knew of alcoholism and the answer we had found. See, so now Jim, see, has been 12-step, see, by two people who really know what the program's all about. See, so he now knows what we are learning out of this book. He knows all about the doctor's opinion. He knows about the disease, the cycle of drinking, the obsession, the chronic alcoholic mind, the allergy, you know, the whole shot. And he knows about the solution. Jim goes, oh boy, and he does what? He made a beginning. All right, now Jim, what you'll see is Jim is a lot like I used to be, a professional beginner. See? Anybody in here have that problem in your life? Make a beginning, don't finish? See? So here's Jim, he makes a beginning. See? How many people in here have begun and not finished? See any of this? Yeah. He made a beginning. His family was reassembled, so he's starting to get his shit together. And he began to work as a salesman for the business he had lost through drinking. All went well for a time. See, what's that called? A brief period of recovery, okay, which will be followed by the still worse relapse. It all went well for a time, but he failed to do what? All right, now ask yourself, if you've been around AA for a while, are you failing to enlarge your spiritual life? And keep your finger right there on the word failed. Let's go back to page 14. In Bill's story, when you get there, go all the way to the bottom of the page, the very last line. See? Let's remind ourselves what the promise was for people who fail to enlarge their spiritual life. Last line says, for if an alcoholic, in this case it would be Jim, see, failed to enlarge his spiritual life, how? Through work and self-sacrifice for others, see, he could not survive the certain trials and low spots ahead. If he did not work, see, what would happen? We promise you. See? And if he drank, what's the next promise? You'd surely die. And those are promises. Right? See, so they tell Jim that. See, they told Jim what they knew of alcoholism and the answer they had found. So Jim knows this. Right? So back on page 35, all went well for a time, but he failed to enlarge his spiritual life. To his consternation. Consternation means shock or dismay. Jim's upset about this. See, he found himself drunk 6 times. Boom, 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 boom. In rapid succession. Half a dozen times, rapid succession. On each of these occasions, we told him he was an unwilling jerk. Get himself sober and come back. What did they say? On each of these occasions, we worked with him. See, why? They can say this guy ain't gay. He's a sick dude. Each of these occasions, we worked with him. See? And how did they work with him? See, they didn't tell him he planned it. See? You planned it. You set yourself up, Jim. You're a jerk. You got low self-esteem. See? That's not what they're telling. What did they do? Reviewing carefully what had happened. See? Trying to get him to see, in his own experience, how this obsession is working in his mind. See? So in each case, see, they're taking him back. How did you get started? Let's see what was going on right before you did. On each of these occasions, we worked with him, reviewing carefully what had happened. He agreed. You can see Jim nodding his head. Yes, right. He's a real alcoholic. Yep, that's me. And in a serious condition. Yep, that's me. He knew, see, that he faced another trip to starting point if he kept on. See, moreover, he would lose his family for whom he had a deep affection. Aren't all those great reasons not to take another drink? See, serious reasons not to take another drink? What's the next sentence? He got drunk again. Time number 7, these guys start to lose their patience a little bit. We asked him to tell us exactly how it happened. So here we're going back to the beginning, of the most recent spree. Has everybody got an underliner? Everybody got one? If you don't have one, grab one. Pink box right up here. Remember, what we're going to be looking at here is the mental state that precedes the relapse into drinking. And if you think back to page 2 in Bill's story, everybody remember when we marked all those I, me, mine, myself things on page 2? Okay, we're going to do that here in this paragraph. So we asked him to tell us exactly how it happened. This is his story. So I'm just going to emphasize personal pronouns, I, me, and mine, mark those. I came to work on Tuesday morning. What happened to Monday? I felt irritated that I had to be a salesman for a concern I once owned. I had a few words with the boss, but nothing serious. Then I decided to drive into the country to see one of my prospects for a car. On the way, I felt hungry. So I stopped at a roadside place where they have a bar. I had no intention of drinking. I just thought I would get a sandwich. I also had the notion that I might find a customer for a car at this place, which was familiar, for I had been going to it for years. I had eaten there many times during the months I was sober. I sat down at a table and ordered a sandwich and a glass of milk. Still no thought of drinking. I ordered another sandwich and decided to have another glass of milk. All right? What do you see in that paragraph? See a lot of self-centeredness? Okay, now see that, is that his state of mind at the moment? See? That's his mental state. He's self-centered. See? And in the next paragraph, you see some italics. That's where the relapse is going to occur. Okay, now before we get into the italics, let's go back to page 20. The very top of the page, very first sentence. And what did they say right up there? See, and what do you think they told Jim? Our very lives as ex-problem drinkers depend on our constant thought of ourselves and how well we're doing and what we feel like and how my day went and how long I've been sober and what's up with me today and my feelings and whether I'm in touch with me and my emotions and a little child within. No, it doesn't say any of that, does it? Constant thought of who? Others, and how we may help meet their needs. See, Jim obviously doesn't buy that. Okay, so what's Jim's mental state? Self-centered. I. Okay? Next paragraph. Suddenly, the thought crossed my mind that if I were to put an ounce of whiskey in my milk, it couldn't hurt me on a full stomach. There is the obsession. Somehow, someday, control and enjoy his drinking. See, this guy didn't set himself up. He wasn't planning to drink. He hadn't had any thought of drinking whatsoever. See, his mind wasn't beating him up about taking a drink or not taking a drink. He didn't have a debate going anywhere at all. He wasn't fighting it. See, it's just suddenly, see, into his mind pops a single thought. The thought is, this can't hurt me on a full stomach. I ordered a whiskey and poured it into the milk. Action on the thought. See? Notice that he didn't think it through. He didn't remember, see, how bad it was last time. He didn't remember what the guys from AA had told him. See? None of that is there. Just the thought enters his mind. He acts on the thought. I ordered a whiskey and poured it into the milk. I vaguely sensed I was not being any too smart. See? But felt, you trust your feelings, reassured, see, as I was taking the whiskey on a full stomach. The experiment went so well that I ordered another whiskey. What's going on right there? Phenomenon of craving now. See, the obsession was the one thought about the drink. See, he orders the drink, but as soon as he starts to drink, it is now all craving. The experiment went so well that I ordered another whiskey and poured it into more milk. That didn't seem to bother me. Those people said I would die. Here I am 2 drinks into this, and I'm not dead, so I tried another. See? And he's now out of control. Anybody see yourself in that? We've got to get over this idea that the great obsession is this constant barrage of drink thinking, see, because it isn't. Let's say this is the ocean. This is the tip of an iceberg. Everybody know about icebergs? How much of an iceberg do you see? 10% or less, right? So how much ice is under the water? Bunches. Lots of ice under the water. Okay? Now right up here is one thought. Have a drink. Now that thought can enter our mind in any one of a million ways. You know, this is such a nice steak, I need a glass of burgundy. It's such a hot day, one beer would be good. This thought can occur once every 6 months. And it just looks like a thought, one single thought. What's behind it? Let's say this is your little ship of sobriety here. This shows up on radar, doesn't it? The ship has radar. This shows up on radar. What part of an iceberg sinks the ship? It ain't the part you see on the radar. When ships go down because of icebergs, see, it's down here, this stuff. See, it sinks it. This is where the great obsession, unknown to us, exists. Every time you get one of these thoughts, this is where it's coming from. The great obsession of every abnormal drinker. There's no mental defense against it. Okay, last paragraph on page 36. Thus started one more journey to the asylum for Jim. It was the threat of commitment, the loss of family and position. Anybody got these kind of things going on in your life? To say nothing of that intense mental and physical suffering which drinking sometimes caused him, always caused him. Here comes some italics. What do italics mean? Ignore this. He had much knowledge about himself as an alcoholic. Do you have knowledge about alcoholism? Yet all reasons. What doesn't respond to reason, we learned? An obsession. Yet all reasons for not drinking were easily pushed aside in favor of the foolish idea that he could take whiskey if only he mixed it with milk. Is that sane? What was the mental state that preceded the relapse into drinking? You might start asking yourself, who am I concerned with? What is most of my thinking about? Okay, whatever the precise definition of the word may be, and it's a word that all of us ought to do a little research into. What is insanity? whatever the precise definition of the word may be, we call this plain insanity. What does the word this in that sentence mean?
The entire story.
Given his experience, see, and his knowledge, see, the fact that this guy drank again, see, is rather insane, isn't it? See, it says whatever the precise definition of what you call this, see, we call it insanity. Do you call it insanity? See, it pretty clearly is to me, see, because that's me. Whatever the precise definition of the... See? What condition was he in, see, when he ordered that first whiskey to put in the milk? Was he drunk or was he sober? Sober. Had been for a while. What condition are you in? Drunk or sober? Could this happen to you? Who and what are you thinking about these days? Okay. So whatever the precise definition of the word may be, we call this plain insanity. How can such a lack of proportion of the ability to think straight be called anything else? Now, you may think this is an extreme case. Oh, yeah, these guys sat down, one rainy Wednesday and tried to come up with a worst-case scenario that they could put in the book. See, to us, it is not far-fetched, for this kind of thinking has been characteristic of how many of the first 100 men and women? Every single one of them. Okay, now, I just look at my own experience, and that's me a number of times in my life. This isn't far-fetched for me, looking back on my drinking career. Is it far-fetched for you? Is this a fairy tale? See, we have sometimes reflected more than Jim did upon the consequences. Okay? See, some folks in AA, when I first came here, they said, what you got to do is think the drink through. See, what do they say right here? It didn't work. Thinking the drink through. See, we reflected more than this guy did. We thought it through. And what happened? They drank it anyway. Thinking a drink through is called a mental defense. Is that pretty obvious to everybody? Everybody knows that there's no mental defense? So we have sometimes reflected more than Jim did upon the consequences, but there was always the curious mental phenomenon that parallel with our sound reasoning. There inevitably ran some insanely trivial means lightweight, mere excuse for taking the first drink. Our sound reasoning failed to hold us in check. The sound reasoning is called sanity. So what wins? The insane idea won out. How many times have you been sober and had the insane idea win out? All it's got to do is get you started. Right? See, one way to look at it is you might imagine that you're a lady who's been asked to go to a formal dance. You know what dance cards are? I don't know if they still do that at formal places anymore. All these guys have to fill in their name, and you get this dance, that dance. See, so you're sitting there and you got a corsage and you're all dressed up. See, and this guy, in a tuxedo walks over and he looks kind of like Cary Grant or Rock Hudson, one of these really handsome, Mel Gibson, somebody like that, asks you to dance. See, but your dance card is full. See, so you send him away. See, and the guy's persistent. See, he comes back 3 or 4 numbers later and asks again. You send him away. 4 or 5 dances later, he comes back. You send him away. See, the guy keeps doing it. See, and finally you go, well, what the fuck? So here you are now suddenly dancing with this guy. He's handsome, smooth, wonderful dancer. See, and then all of a sudden, you feel a tap on your shoulder. See, and there's King Kong right behind you going, may I cut in? See, and this guy goes, of course. See, and suddenly now, see, you're Fay Ray with King Kong, see, and Kong doesn't know how to dance. See, Kong picks you up and goes, see, out of a door. See, so the guy in the tuxedo is the obsession. See, the guy that cuts in is the allergy. Right? See, and you come crawling back into the dance. See? And here comes the guy in the tuxedo again. I'm so sorry. That was all a mistake. Would you care to dance? And you go, bud. See? But he persists. See? Sooner or later you go, oh, what the hell? See? And you start dancing, and then there's this tap on your shoulder. See? Feel like put in. And he goes, of course. See? And this is repeated over and over and over again. See? The obsession's only job is to get you to take the first drink. See? Because once you take the first drink, the allergy kicks in. Can you see that in your own experience? See? So you gotta resist Cary Grant here. See, not King Kong. Okay, the insane idea won out. Next day, we would ask ourselves in all earnestness and sincerity how it could have happened. You ever done that? Been baffled? How did I get started? Okay. Now it says, in some circumstances, we have gone out deliberately to get drunk, feeling ourselves justified. Where do we justify what we justify? In our mind. Feeling ourselves justified by nervousness, anger, worry, depression, jealousy, or the like. Any of you guys ever done this? Let's say I'm married to Kristen over here. See, she says something I don't like. Fuck you, bitch. I'm getting drunk. And all the way to the bar, see, I'm railing at her. See, and it never occurs to me, see, what's about to happen in my life. See, I'm just justifying it the whole way, see, over to the point where I get started. See, I don't walk out here going, I'm mad at her, but I'm probably going to end up in jail tonight. You know, and I may kill a kid, see, and I might die myself. I don't think that way. See, it's that bitch, she just, see, and I end up drinking. You ever done that? See, going up to the, I hope I didn't embarrass you. Okay. See, does that make sense to you? See, we do it deliberately. The boss, bills, stress, pressure, the old lady, my husband, my kids. See? The weather, whatever. Okay, but even in this type of beginning, we are obliged to admit that our justification, which is going on where? Inside us. Our justification for a spree was what kind of insufficient? Insanely insufficient in the light of what always happened. Insanely insufficient. Okay, so we now see. So you got to ask yourself, do I now see? See, am I getting it? Do I see this? See, we now see. It doesn't say we now think. We now discuss. See, we now see. I get it. See, that when we began to drink deliberately instead of casually, there was little serious or effective thought. See? Mental defense. See? Very little serious or effective. Effective means workable, works. See? Thought during the period of premeditation. Premeditation means thinking it through before you do it. Okay? So the thinking that we do before we do it, even if we're thinking about not doing it, doesn't work. Anybody done that? I have sat at a bar with a beer or drink in front of me and prayed not to drink it and then drank it. Anybody done that kind of stuff? See? Okay. See, the best, you know, see, all my thinking wouldn't stop me from doing it. Praying wouldn't stop me from doing it. Wham, see, once I started, I couldn't stop. Okay, so we now see that when we began to drink deliberately instead of casually, there was little serious or effective thought during the period of premeditation of what the terrific consequences might be. Anybody see yourself in that? Okay, so even that kind of beginning is what? It's insane. So we have to start to let go of our old ideas about what insanity is. See, most of us get it, see, if we haven't been in a loony bin yet, we get it from watching Freddy Krueger movies. See? That's insane. You know, somebody in a rubber room with a straight jacket, yelling, screaming, wrapped in wet sheets, doing the Thorazine shuffle, see, thinking they're Jesus Christ, you know, being kind of odd spot kittens, you know, that kind of crazy. See, this is a form of insanity. See? You remember in chapter 2 where Dr. Young was talking to Roland, called it the chronic alcoholic mind. He's never seen anybody recover from it. It's an untreatable form of insanity. See? And yet the guy he was talking to, Roland, was a businessman who seemed normal in every respect. Didn't think he was Jesus Christ, wasn't doing the Thorazine shuffle. it's tough for us to swallow, see, that this really is a form of insanity, and we got it. See, it's all based on this obsession. See, which tells you what? You ain't got it. Nah, I don't have it. Okay, our behavior. What's the difference between your thinking and your behavior? Yeah, see? Behavior is conduct or deportment's what we do. Thinking is something else. Have you ever noticed that a lot of times what you think and what you do are not the same thing? See, has that ever occurred to everybody? See? It's kind of interesting. See, so we're going to be looking at our behavior. See, and he's going to give us an example. As we go through the example of the jaywalker, if you would look back on your own drinking career and just follow through the example with us. Okay? Our behavior is as absurd. Everybody know what absurd means? Ridiculous. And incomprehensible. See, incomprehensible means you can't figure it out. Okay? See, so have you ever had this sense of, I can't figure out what's going on in my life? See? Have you ever, you've gotten drunk and, at the end of being drunk said, this is ridiculous? See, our behavior is as absurd and incomprehensible with respect to the first drink as that of an individual with a passion, say, for jaywalking. Everybody knows what jaywalking is? Okay. He gets a thrill out of skipping in front of fast-moving vehicles. So you might underline the word thrill, look it up in a dictionary. It's kind of interesting. And then begin to ask yourself, when you started drinking and doing drugs, and especially if you've done a lot of different kinds of drugs, you probably got a thrill every time you started something new. Ask yourself if it wasn't thrilling to you, especially at the beginning. Back when I was a teenager, and there were a lot of youngsters my age who were not drinking. See, and I thought what I was doing was rather manly and exciting and thrilling. It seemed to me that me and the guys I was running around with and the women I was running around with had a hell of a lot more fun and excitement than all these other boobs who were going to Latin club and that kind of stuff. Okay, so you might see if you got a thrill, out of drinking, especially early on. Okay, he enjoys he gets a thrill out of skipping in front of fast-moving vehicles. He enjoys himself for a few years. I certainly did, in spite of friendly warnings. Okay, remember Bill, the ominous warning which he failed to heed? Look back in your experience. You get any friendly warnings? Maybe you got a problem. You ought to watch it. Okay, up to this point, you would label him as a foolish chap having queer ideas of fun. The word queer here means odd. Doesn't mean homosexual. Okay. Luck then deserts him, and he is slightly injured several times in succession. Look back on your own drinking career. Did you get injured at all? A little bit? Okay. As I look back when I was a teenager and getting rather heavily into this, there were some people who got injured a little more than me. Most of my injuries didn't come from run-ins with cops or any of that. They came in terms of relationships, and paying the price at school, academically, down the drain, athletically, down the drain, socially, down the drain. Lots of injuries that way in my experience. Okay, you would expect him, see the next four words? See, right above the next four words where it says, if he were normal. See, above those words, write, if he had a choice, because that's what a normal guy or woman has. Okay, remember we talked earlier about the peculiar mental twist that enters early on? Here it is. You would expect him, if he were normal, if he had a choice, to learn from his experience, see that there was a problem and stop drinking, stop doing drugs. But what didn't you do and what didn't I do? We didn't stop. See? When I look back on my drinking career, and there were a number of guys, mostly, I drank with some women, but mostly with guys, who got injured a few times in succession, and they peeled off. They stopped. See, they got out of my little formation, and they landed somewhere and went to college, Good couple of high school friends of mine. One is a millionaire stockbroker in Marin County. He used to drink like crazy when he was a good friend of mine back in high school. But he saw what was happening to me. When it started happening to him, he stopped. Went off, got married, got a degree. Done great. Another friend of mine from high school, a guy I ran around with, he was a heavy drinker. Drank more than I did in a lot of cases. Stopped. He's now a CPA. He's got some kids, and he's off doing all right. There's a lot of people I've known over the years that I drank with, and they drank pretty heavy, but shit started happening, they stopped. I never did. See, I just kept going. See, I am not normal. See, I wasn't normal back then. See, you would expect him if he were normal, if he had a choice. See, these guys had a choice. They could see, they could tell the true from the false. Not me. Okay? You would expect him, if he were normal, to cut it out. Presently, he's hit again, and this time has a fractured skull. Within a week after leaving the hospital, a fast-moving trolley car breaks his arm. He tells you he has decided to stop jaywalking for good. See? That's what he tells you, but what happens? In a few weeks, he breaks both legs. What do we see right there? The psychopath. See? The guy with the firm resolutions and the promises, see, who doesn't stop. See? Look at your own experience. See? And this is all going on pretty high up on the doom curve, pretty far back. Okay? On through the years, this conduct continues. See? Accompanied by different thinking. See? It's continual promises. Remember the firm resolutions we learned about in doctor's opinion? Continual promises to be careful or to keep off the streets altogether. See, to either moderate this or to stop. Is that you? See, that's very psychopathic. See, always going on the wagon for keeps, always promising, but the conduct continues. See, you see the inability, see, of the guy, see, his thinking is one thing, his behavior is something totally different. Is that you? Continual promises. To be careful or to keep off the streets altogether. Finally, he can no longer work. Has that happened to anybody in here? See, 1978, I could no longer work. His wife gets a divorce. He's held up to ridicule. Have you ever been ridiculed as a result of your drugs and alcohol and that kind of stuff? Okay, he tries every known means to get the jaywalking idea out of his pocket, out of his wallet, out of his relationship. Where is it? Where's this guy's problem? It's in his head. Okay? He shuts himself up in Charter Hospital, hoping that'll do it. He goes to a treatment center, sees a doctor, sees a shrink, gets therapy, gets counsel. Shuts himself up in an asylum, hoping to mend his ways. But the day he comes out, he races in front of a fire engine which breaks his back. Such a man or woman would be what? Crazy, wouldn't he? Is that pretty obvious? Now, you may think our illustration is too ridiculous. See, but is it? See, we who have been through the ringer have to admit, what does have to translate into? Must. See, that if we substituted alcoholism for jaywalking, see, and if you did drugs, you can put drug addiction or dual addiction in there. See, if we substituted alcoholism for jaywalking, the illustration would fit us sort of. Nearly. Kind of, perhaps. Almost, somewhat, maybe, if I got a little worse. Okay, what does exact mean? The same as. See, precisely the same as. Now, does the illustration fit you exactly, see, if you put your drug and alcohol use into the illustration? Is that you? Okay. Have you jaywalked? But such a man would be what? Crazy. And yet you may have a job, you may be raising your kids, paying your bills, see, and doing all this other stuff that makes you look and feel rather normal. See, but such a man would be what? Crazy, insane. Okay? However intelligent we may have been in other respects. See? Now, I doubt there's anybody unintelligent or stupid in this room. See? And I've met a whole lot of people in AA who are way smarter than I was. See? And some of them have already died of their alcoholism. However, intelligence. The intelligence and ignorance are, they can exist in the same place. Does it seem pretty clear to everybody in here that you can be very intelligent, see, well-read, broad-minded, and know a lot of shit and still be totally ignorant? See, when it comes to alcoholism? Is that possible? However intelligent we may have been in other respects, where alcohol has been involved, we have been what? Strangely insane. Okay? Last sentence, let's all read it out loud together. It's strong language, but about who? that you? See, this is what we're talking about in step 2. This man or woman needs to be restored to sanity, and there's nothing human that can do it. It's either true or it's false. Strong language, but isn't it true? Okay, some of you are thinking, yes, what you tell us is true, but. See? Everybody know the signs of a closed mind? Words like but, what about, and however. See, those are always sign of a closed mind. See? Yes, what you tell us is true, but. See, it doesn't fully apply. Put your finger on the word fully. Go back to page 30. Second paragraph. It says, we learned that we had to, what's the word after to? Fully. See, not partially. See, we had to fully concede to our innermost selves that we were what? Alcoholics. Okay, back over here on page 38. See, here's someone, see, who's sitting there listening to these guys talk about this problem, and they're going, yeah, I can see this sort of, maybe, nearly, kind of, perhaps, almost, but it doesn't fully apply. See, so what are the 2 invisible words after the word apply?
To me.
To me. See, those are the 2 invisible words in a statement like that. See, we admit we have some of the symptoms, see, but we have not gone to the extremes you fellows did, nor are we likely to, for we understand ourselves. Where does this understanding go on? In the mind. After what you've told us, that such things cannot happen again. Okay, everybody remember the doom curve that we had up here a little while ago? Everybody getting familiar with that? Okay, see, so here's somebody, see, standing at the top of the doom curve, looking down at somebody who's at the bottom of it. See, and going, see, I'm not standing on the doom curve. See, who has come to no real understanding, see, of alcoholism at all. See, still looking at this in terms of what got lost, see, as the doom curve progressed, instead of noticing that they're standing on it, see, and sliding down it. Does that make sense? See, yeah, you see, I'm not like you. I haven't gone as far. I didn't drink as much. I'm not as old. I didn't have all this crap happen to me. Therefore, see, my disease hasn't progressed. I'm not really an alcoholic. I'm not powerless. See? And see, that's always being said by someone who does not understand that allergy plus obsession equals doom. Very simple. See? Always looking at the outside stuff, the drunkalogue, the tragedy, the misery, the jokes, stories, all that kind of stuff. See? Okay. We have not lost everything in life through drinking, and we certainly do not intend to. Thanks for the information, and fuck you very much. Now that may be true. See, open-minded says that may be true of certain what? Non-alcoholic people. See, so if you're sitting in here and you're not an alcoholic, it may be true of you. Cool. No problem. See, who though drinking foolishly and heavily at the present time are able to what or what? Stop or moderate on their own power, see, because their brains and bodies have not been damaged as ours were. But, see, and see, when you see but in the book buts are pretty hairy. See, but, so. You could say you're being spiritually mooned at this point. The actual or potential alcoholic, no matter where you are on the doom curve, with hardly an exception, in other words, about 100% of all actual potential alcoholics, the will be, and notice how wishy-washy the rest of this paragraph is, will be, not might be or could be, but will be absolutely unable to stop drinking on the basis of self-knowledge. There are a lot of dead people who had this book memorized. Because just to learn what's in this book but not do it is just more self-knowledge. Absolutely unable to stop drinking and stay stopped on the basis of self-knowledge. And this is a point. Let's all read this sentence together. This is a point we wish to emphasize and re-emphasize, to smash home upon our alcoholic readers as it has been revealed to us out of bitter experience. See, does that sound like, a guy or a woman walking in the door needs a hug? See, remember the word smash from page 30? The delusion that we are like other people, or presently may be, has to be what? Smashed. It's the point we wish to emphasize and re-emphasize, to smash home upon our alcoholic readers, as it has been revealed to us, not out of the Reader's Digest, okay? Not out of the Ladies' Home Journal, okay? But bitter experience. Okay? Let us take another illustration. We'll pick up with Fred next Sunday, the Jaywalker example one more time, just to refresh everybody's memory. Remember, up to this point in chapter 3, so we're talking about alcoholism, and the main problem with the alcoholic exists where? In the mind. In the mind. Right? And they've given us a couple of examples up to this point. That 30-year-old guy who stopped drinking for 25 years and then picked up the bottle and killed him within 4 years. And then we looked at the example of Jim the car salesman. And Jim, see, that 30-year-old businessman didn't know anything about alcoholism or AA. He was just totally operating, on his own resources. And you might look at your own experience. If we all ask ourselves, how do we go about solving problems in our life? Where's the first place we all go? When we recognize we have a problem, we go to ourselves. We attack our problems with our intellect and our knowledge and our willpower and our confidence and our ambition and our motivation and all that kind of stuff. We go to ourselves to solve the problem. Does that make sense to you? Okay. And then what happens as a result of that is we fail. And we continue to get drunk and we continue to get loaded. And even during these periods of sobriety or clean time that we have, no matter how long they are, we're leading these miserable lives, just like hanging on, white knuckling it, trying to stay sober. Okay, so that doesn't work. So once we come to some kind of recognition, that of ourselves we can't solve the problem, then where do we go? Okay, well, then we head out, and we start talking to other people. You might just look at your own experience of this. We might go to a recovery center, a treatment center, a doctor, a shrink, a therapist, a group. Some of us get into it by going to a counselor, reading a lot of self-help books, religion, all that kind of stuff. We start going out from ourselves. Once it becomes pretty apparent to us that of ourselves we can't solve the problem. Does that make sense? Okay, and then what happens as a result of that? More failure. So we throw all these therapies and wonderful ideas at the problem that we're facing, but our real problem is we never really clearly defined the problem. Haven't even understood that yet. Okay. So in these examples in the book, the first one we saw was the 30-year-old businessman. He was able to stay sober for a quarter of a century, and then his alcoholism killed him. And then we saw Jim the car salesman, who was a little further down the doom curve. And he knew what alcoholism was. He had been in a couple of medical institutions, and he'd been 12-step by a couple of guys from AA. He knew all the things that we're learning in the book. Okay? And every time they talked to him, if you remember an example, he's nodding his head. Yeah, I'm a real alcoholic. Yeah, I'm going to lose the old lady. Yeah, I'm going to lose the job. Yeah, I'm going to lose my health. Yeah, it's going to kill me. Yes. And what did he keep doing? Drank anyway. Kept going back and doing it again anyway, even with all the knowledge, that he had. So they're asking us to start taking a look at this state of mind that exists in the alcoholic, regardless of how it is that we get started, regardless of our attitudes, and regardless of where we are in terms of material and worldly kind of success. Is there an obsession, in our mind? Okay?
that overpowers all of this stuff that we've been talking about. See, all the cliches and the hugs and any mental defense whatsoever, willpower, desire. Okay? A lot of us think that tradition 3 means the obsession is no longer there. Okay? But in an alcoholic, there can be a very strong desire to stay sober, a very strong desire to never drink or use again, and at the same time an unrecognized obsession, see, to do it again. Okay? And that's what we're seeing here in chapter 3, this thought that just keeps entering the mind, whether you want to drink or whether you don't want to drink. So is everybody starting to get clear about that? See? So that the obsession is not a constant, ongoing, all day, every day, I got to get drunk, I got to get loaded kind of a thing. See? It's one thought that can enter the mind every 6 months. Okay? And that's all it takes. All the obsession has to do is get you started. See, what'll happen once you start? Everybody clear about that? There is no control over it, see, once you have begun. See, because of the physical part of alcoholism, the allergy kicks in, that abnormal reaction to the drugs or the alcohol. See, so all the allergy's got to do is get you started, right? See, once you started, bam, your history. See, and this is literally what kills most alcoholics. It's the problem that exists in the mind of the alcoholic. Okay, so let's pick up on page 37 at the bottom. Go to the jaywalker example one more time. First two words are our what? Behavior. Okay, last week we were talking about why we all need to take a look at the difference between our thinking and our behavior. Okay, and I asked you to start looking to see if your thinking is ever at odds with what you actually do. Okay, and for most of us that's true. Especially when we have a pretty serious desire to stop drinking, and yet our behavior is we go back and do it again. See, something happens. So what we're talking about in the jaywalking example is our behavior is as absurd. Absurd means ridiculous, and incomprehensible. Incomprehensible means what the hell's going on? I can't figure this out. Okay, so ask yourself, has your behavior, regardless of your thinking, been somewhat ridiculous and hard to figure out? Does everybody see that? See, regardless of what you think, just looking at the conduct, the behavior, has it been somewhat ridiculous and kind of hard to figure out? Okay, see, now, remember that we're talking about a disease of alcoholism here. See, most of us do these ridiculous things, and we continue to do them over and over again. There's no cliche in AA and NA about doing the same things, expecting different results. Everybody heard that one? See, that's what we do. We need to get a little bit underneath the cliche to see exactly what's causing this. And you might start to ask yourself, have you ever really understand this thing called cause, when it comes to your behavior? Because if you're an alcoholic, the cause has to do with an obsession that exists in the mind. Okay, so our behavior is as absurd and incomprehensible with respect to the first drink as that of an individual with a passion, say, for jaywalking. He gets a thrill out of skipping in front of fast-moving vehicles. Okay, so if we all just look back, did you get a thrill out of the drugs and the alcohol when you started? Was there any thrill in the whole business for you? Remember Bill said, I was part of life at last, moments sublime, intervals hilarious. Okay? It was true for me. I was scared and depressed and felt out of it and weird and different and all that, but when I drank, I was a combination of John Wayne and Albert Einstein. And to me, that was kind of thrilling. The only thing that would really bring about a change, in me, was the alcohol and the drugs. So you might look and see if that was true about you. He enjoys himself for a few years in spite of friendly warnings. Here lies a Hampshire Grenadier who caught his breath drinking cold small beer. Okay, up to this point, you would label him as a foolish chap having queer ideas of fun. Luck then deserts him, and he's slightly injured several times in succession. Has luck deserted you? When did it start deserting you? Okay. Looking at your own doom curve, say how many injuries happened and how. See, it doesn't, see, as I was telling you last week, the injuries that occurred early on for me had more to do with my relationships with people, my scholastic performance in high school, my athletic performance, all that kind of stuff, social stuff. I wasn't getting arrested and going to jail and committing crimes. It was just, there were a lot of things that were beginning to happen that were very noticeable in my life. However, I didn't connect them with alcohol. And luck then deserted me, slightly injured several times in succession. You would expect him if he were normal. Has everybody got something written right above that phrase? What do you got written there? He had a choice. A normal person has what? A choice. An obsessed person has what? No choice. See, at what point in your life did the obsession for drugs and alcohol exist? And this is another thing we all need to be open-minded to. Remember, a little earlier on, they talked about the peculiar mental twist that already existed in the young people who are exhibiting signs, see, of real alcoholism. See, a lot of us think that you got to drink a long time before you ever become obsessed with it. See, but in my case, it was just backwards. The obsession was there long before I was experiencing a whole lot of out of control and outward manifestations of my alcoholism. See, so I can see, as I look back on what happened to me, see, the obsession was there very early on. See, and it explains to me why I can't learn from my own experience. See, why I'm this person who continues to do, see, these absurd and incomprehensible things. I'm not stupid. I don't think anybody in this room is stupid. See, and yet I kept doing this stuff that looked pretty stupid most of my life, up to age 38. So look at your own experience. You would expect him, if he were normal, to cut it out. See, something is dangerous to most human beings, and they have a bad experience with it. What do? They don't do that anymore. See? What does an alcoholic do? They do it again and twice as much. Look at your own experience. If he were normal, see? Do you have trouble with that word normal? Most of us hate going, see? I don't want to admit I'm not normal. See? Is jaywalking normal? Okay. You'd expect him, if he were normal, to cut it out. Presently, he's hit again, and this time has a fractured skull. Within a week after leaving the hospital, a fast-moving trolley car breaks his arm. He tells you he has decided to stop jaywalking for good, see, but in a few weeks he breaks both legs. See, so here we begin to see the difference, see, between the thinking and the behavior. See, this guy's thinking one thing, and he's doing something entirely different. Okay, already, pretty early on, so he cannot tell the truth from the false. Okay, where is this problem going on? In the mind of the alcoholic. So look at your own experience. See, how many times have you told yourself and other people, say, that you ain't ever going to do it again, and then did it again? See, is that some evidence, see, in your life? Okay, on through the years. All right, now, looking at your own life, see, put a number there. How many years? See, when I look at my own experience on through the years, meant 25 years. See, that's how long I did it. I started at age 12. I sobered up when I was 37 in 1982. Okay, so how many years have you been, see, telling yourself and that you aren't going to do it, telling other people that you're going to solve the problem, and having the problem just continue? Has it been a number of years? See, how many years? See, be as specific as you can. On through the years, this conduct, see, it doesn't say thinking, does it? See, this conduct just keeps doing it, okay, regardless of what's going on in the mind. Accompanied by his continual promises. Remember Dr. Silkworth's term, firm resolutions, not to drink again? How many firm resolutions on through the years have you made? To be careful or to keep off the streets altogether. So that's either to moderate or to stop. I will control this. I'll be okay. Leave me alone. I don't have a problem. Finally, he can no longer work. His wife gets a divorce and he's held up to ridicule. Any of you been ridiculed? I've been ridiculed somewhat. Okay. He tries every known means to get the jaywalking idea out of his head. Okay, see, so we start going inward and then outward. See, looking for a solution. He shuts himself up in charter hospital, hoping to mend his ways. He shuts himself up in AA meetings, hoping to mend his ways. He shuts himself up in a recovery house, hoping to mend his ways. And he sees a shrink or a counselor. He's trying to get this idea out of his mind. Okay? But the day he comes out, he races in front of a fire engine, which breaks his back. And such a man would be what? Crazy. True or false? Okay, it's kind of a silly little example, but does it fit you? Such a man would be crazy, wouldn't he? Now, you may think our illustration is too ridiculous, but is it? We who have been through the ringer, right? Ask yourself, looking at your own experience in life and what's been going on with you behind drugs and alcohol, have you been through the ringer? Or has everything been a party up till now? See, we who have been through the ringer have to admit. See, have to means what? Must. No musts in the program. We have to admit that if we substituted alcoholism for jaywalking, the illustration would fit us nearly, sort of, kind of, perhaps, almost, someday if it got a little worse. What does exact mean? Precisely. Does it fit you? Okay. Does it fit you up to this point in your life? It fits me exactly, precisely. Dots the I's, crosses the T's. However intelligent we may have been in other respects. Now, do you regard yourself as an intelligent human being? Okay, just be honest about that. Do you regard yourself as an intelligent human being? I would imagine that most of us do. Okay, so however intelligent we may have been in other respects where alcohol, see, and if you do drugs, you know, put drugs in there, has been involved, we have been what? Strangely insane. Okay, now let's, if you would, keep your finger there on page 38. Let's go back to the previous chapter on page 27. Go to line number 3. If you remember, when we went through this is the story of a guy named Roland Hazard talking to Carl Jung, one of the premier psychiatrists of the 20th century. It says, some of our alcoholic readers may think they can do without spiritual help. Let us tell you the rest of the conversation our friend had with Carl Jung. The doctor said, you have the mind of a chronic alcoholic. Okay? I have never seen, what words do you have underlined? One single case recovered. Okay? So what is this psychiatrist, telling this guy? You have an untreatable form of insanity. Okay? I have never seen one single case recovered. Okay, now, we learned about Dr. Silkworth. He experienced a recovery rate of about what percent? 2%. See, so in his experience, alcoholism and drug addiction is about 98% fatal. What is this doctor telling Roland in terms of percentages? 100% fatal. Okay. Now, a lot of us have other kinds of opinions. We go, not true. Okay. So if you're asking, if you got that kind of stuff going on, that's all right. But you might begin to ask yourself, what is your opinion based on? See? What do you base your opinion on? See, here's one of the premier psychiatrists of the 20th century, telling this alcoholic, the bad news. See, and most of us, we read this and we go, nah, no way. See, but the statistics show us, that what he's saying is true. See, so I'll need to have an open mind and start to look. See, you have the mind of a chronic alcoholic. Where's the main problem of the alcoholic? In the mind. See, I've never seen one single case recover where that state of mind existed to the extent that it does in you. See, and what is that state of mind? See, this is the jaywalker. See, the person, who despite all reasons, despite all circumstances, losing whatever they're losing in life, continues, either to drink the alcohol, use the drugs, or to have the obsession to do that. Okay? So in this constant struggle that goes on, while we try to white-knuckle our sobriety and our clean time. Okay, back to page 38. However intelligent we may have been in other respects where alcohol has been involved, we have been strangely what? Insane. It's strong language, but isn't it true? Okay, is that hard for you guys to swallow? is for me, or was, it's not anymore. Explains a whole lot of my life. This is tough stuff, see? So they say it is strong language, you bet. See, how could I be insane? I'm employed. How could I be insane? I'm raising my kids. See, all that, whatever it is that you got going on in your life. I couldn't possibly be insane. See, but what you might do, see, is start to examine what your old ideas about insanity are and see where you got them. See, most of us, when we hear the word insanity, we immediately start thinking Freddy Krueger kinds of things. See, with straight jackets and rubber rooms and Thorazine shuffle and, yelling and screaming and, see, all that bedlam sorts of things. See, but there are a lot of different forms of insanity. Alcoholism is simply one of them. See, and in the experience of the medical and psychiatric profession, see, it is not treatable. See, it is not treatable. Strong language, but isn't it true? So, if you're an open-minded person, see, and you're having trouble with this, the first thing to do, see, is go, not true. See, not true about me. Fine, just be honest with yourself about that. And then begin to ask yourself, see, what you're basing your opinion on. See, this stuff is either true or it's false. See, and if you think it's false, see, it either doesn't match your experience, or, see, you're being closed-minded. Does that make sense? See, and it's tough. See, all you got to do, see, most of us, I'm sure, have an experience kind of similar to mine when I was new in AA. I was kind of willing to accept that there might be something physically wrong with me. Yeah, I can't control my drinking. See, but you start telling me there's something wrong with my mind, and this thing starts to happen automatically. My hand comes out of my pocket, starts going like this. Does your hand do that? See, when somebody starts talking to you about insanity, nothing wrong with my mind. It may be my body, but not my mind. See? Or, yeah, then, see, if we start to cop to maybe we're a little nuts, see, we always attribute that to the alcohol that we drink. See, what I do when I drink, what I do when I use, that's my insanity. See? But this is something totally different. This is what I'm doing when I'm sober and when I'm clean. See, we're not talking about the things that go on with us when we're drunk and loaded, on a binge or a run or high or any of that. That's got nothing to do with it. We're talking about the sober alcoholic sitting in an AA meeting, insane. Nah, can't be. Okay, can't be. Well, how is it, see, that 90% of us or better go drink again? Okay. Everybody's sitting there going like this, see, and pretty soon it's this. I can even hold this way.
Greatly resembles a jet plane and takeoff.
See, so what you need to see, this is tough stuff. See, we are not kidding. See, and you can see this. People wrote the book. We're not kidding. See, so if you're having some trouble with it, see, the best suggestion I can have, see, is just be honest with yourself. I'm having trouble with this. Okay, and just notice that here's this information in the book. Okay? These are some facts. You got your own experience. See? And if you have trouble, just be honest with yourself. I'm having trouble accepting that. That's perfectly okay. See? And you might talk to your sponsor or whoever it is that you're working with. See? And go over this. See? Because simply to say it's not true, see, doesn't make it not true. Sort of like, if the building was burning down here, we could all sit here and deny it, couldn't we? See, but it might cost, it's not true. The building's not really on fire. See, well, okay. But the fire doesn't care, does it? See, the fire doesn't give a damn what we think. See, it's very impersonal and very democratic, and it just does what it does. Okay? See, well, alcoholism is the same way. So simply because we don't want to accept something doesn't mean it's not the truth. And so you need to look at your own experience. See, we may have some people in here who aren't real alcoholics or real drug addicts, but if you are, see, it's kind of dangerous. This is not a game where ignorance is bliss. See, it's not okay to be unwise and uninformed. See, if this literally could cost you your life. Okay, bottom page 38. It says, some of you might be thinking, Could be thinking. Some of you are thinking. Okay, yes, what you tell us is true, but it doesn't fully apply. Okay, we admit we have some of these symptoms. All right, put your word on some. Go back to page 30. Go to the second paragraph on page 30, first line, and it says, we learned that we had to, one of the next two words, fully concede to our innermost selves that we were alcoholic. See, now, what happens, see, when we start sharing this information, especially with newcomers, is, yes, I have some of it. See, yeah, well, I'm showing some signs of that, but, okay, and there's, see, following the but comes reason. See, here's all the reasons, see, that it's not really true about me. See, so you might look and see if you have a great big but, see, beginning to arrive, see, in your mind. Okay, so back on page 38, yes, what you tell us is true, but it doesn't fully apply. Okay? We admit we have some of these symptoms, but we have not gone to the extremes you fellows did, nor are we likely to. Okay, now we've been talking about this doom curve, see, and how some of us arrive in AA, without having lost everything in life, and others of us, see, have lost just about everything. See, when I came into Alcoholics Anonymous in 1982, I had a 10-year-old van and some clothes. See, and not a single nickel, and I hadn't worked for 5 years. See, so for people who have really gotten wiped out, see, it's a bit easier to see this whole business of powerlessness. See, but a lot of times what happens is when people who come into Alcoholics Anonymous have a job and you haven't experienced street life and see all that kind of stuff, you start looking, see, at the people who say they lost everything, and you go, well, I didn't go that far, so I'm not that bad. See, I haven't gone to the extremes this guy did or that woman did. I haven't had 4 DUIs. I haven't been divorced 3 times. See, I've never experienced unemployment. See, and we use all those things, that's all going on in our mind, to tell us, see, that, we're not really alcoholics. See, has anybody done that besides me? Use that? See, that's called the yes in Alcoholics Anonymous. See, we fail to recognize that we're on the doom curve. See, we fail to understand what the disease actually is, and that if we have it, see, it is inevitable that we will end up down there. See, that's it. It's like, you take somebody who's got, I don't know much about cancer, but, I think it's called a basal cell, whatever it is. Anyway, you can have this thing growing on your skin somewhere. Oh, brown job, looks like a wart. Okay, now, see, the thing is cancerous. And left untreated, it will eventually kill the person who's got it. See, it'll just get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. See, the person eventually sees that there's something wrong there, and they go to the doctor, and the doctor takes it off. See, but if the person never recognizes, even in this one little spot on their body, that's a fatal disease. It's already started. See, and if nothing's done about it, see, this person who's walking around water skiing and doing all this stuff in life cannot connect this thing on their arm with an oncology ward in a hospital. See, 3 years down the road or 10 years down the road. See, there's no way, see, because they're ignorant of the problem. Okay, see, so here we are. See, we walk into Alcoholics Anonymous, and if our circumstances in life are not as bad as some that we read in the book or some that you hear at a speaker meeting, see, we think we got this little, I've got some symptoms of this, but it's not that bad. See, and we can't connect what's going on with us, see, with these stories that people tell, see, about years of misery and unemployment and cirrhosis of the liver and the CTs and all this stuff that goes on where you lose your health and your family and all that. See, so if you're someone who's looking at this that way, see, it takes a little more open-mindedness on your part. Does that make sense? So you have to see that the disease has got nothing to do with the outward circumstances of your life. See, it ain't about how much we lost. See, and it ain't about how much we drank and how much we spilled and how much we used. See, it's, number one, do you have the allergic reaction? See, yes or no, true or false. Number two, does the obsession exist in your mind? Those two things will kill you. See, regardless of the circumstances that you find yourself in, see, when you walked into Alcoholics Anonymous. Everybody getting kind of clear on that? See? Got nothing to do with how much you lost, how much you drank, how old you are, whether you're a man or woman, whether you got a job or not. See? Got nothing to do with it. Okay, let's go back to the last paragraph again. So some of you are thinking, yes, what you tell us is true. Doesn't fully apply. What are the two invisible words after the word apply? To me. We admit, not that we're powerless over alcohol, we admit we have some of these symptoms. See? You might ask yourself, what have you admitted up to this point? See? But we have not gone to the extremes you fellows did, see? Nor are we likely to, for we understand ourselves so well. That's called self-knowledge. After what you've told us that such things cannot happen again, see? What we know will keep us sober. See? We have not lost everything in life through drinking, and we certainly do not intend to. Thanks for the information, and fuck you very much. Not me. I'm out of here. Take it out. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for the information. Now, that may be true of certain what kind of people? Non-alcoholic people. And what do we call them? What did we learn about them in Chapter 2? Moderate drinkers and hard drinkers. See, and what stops them? Good reason. Sufficient reason. See, no problem. See, they're out of the drinking game, they're out of the drug game. Okay, so that may be true, see, of certain non-alcoholic people who, though drinking foolishly and heavily at the present time, are able to what or what? See, at the present time, or because their brains and bodies have not been damaged as ours were. But the actual or potential alcoholic. See, so you got to ask yourself, where at this point, see, as we go through this stuff, do you think you fit in? See, do you think you're a moderate drinker, moderate drug user? See? Do you think you're a hard drinker? See? Or do you think you're an actual or potential alcoholic? Are you coming to some understanding? See, there's not a whole lot of pigeonholes to crawl in here. So you got to be one of these. Where are you? See, regardless of the circumstances in your life. See, the actual or potential alcoholic, with hardly an exception. Now, what I'd like you to notice as we go through the remainder of this paragraph is how vague and wishy-washy it actually is. Okay? The remainder of this paragraph. The actual or potential alcoholic, with hardly an exception, will be, see, and here come the italics. What do italics mean? Skip this, don't pay any attention to it, it's lightweight. Okay, will be absolutely unable to stop drinking on the basis of what? Okay, how many people have been in a treatment center in here? Okay, did you get a lot of knowledge? Okay. Everybody get a lot of knowledge in there? See, absolutely unable to stop drinking on the basis of self-knowledge. See, how about things like that we like to talk about in some of our groups? Dealing with our feelings. Is that self-knowledge? Now I got some knowledge about my feelings. How about getting in touch with myself? Is that self-knowledge? See, that kind of stuff? See, it's all that, see, personal understanding, see, in touch with my emotions, dealing with my feelings. See, it's all forms of what? Self-knowledge. Okay? What does the book say here? Absolutely unable, see, to stay sober. See, stop drinking on the basis of self-knowledge. Okay? See, what's psychiatry all about? Self-knowledge. See, what's psychotherapy all about? Self-knowledge. What's psychology all about? See, what's self-help all about? Pretty clear? I mean, so, see, either the guys that wrote the book are right or they're wrong. See, that ought to be pretty clear. Here it is, see, in the book, see, and it's either true or it's false, one or the other. It can only be one of those, right? All right, now, what do you think about the statement? See, do you think the statement is true, or do you think the statement is false? See, that's what the kind of questions we all need to start asking ourselves. See, that's open-minded and honest and intelligent. Absolutely unable to stop drinking on the basis of self-knowledge. Okay, this is a point that we don't think is very important, so why don't we just skip on to the next paragraph? Is that what your book says? No, this is a point, see, we wish to emphasize. Everybody know what emphasis means? Stress. See, to stress something, this is a point we wish to emphasize and re-emphasize. To, and what's the next word? Smash. Put your finger on the word smash. Let's go back to page 30. Go to the second paragraph, fourth line of the second paragraph on page 30, and what's the last word you see on the line? Okay. Now what is it that needs to be smashed? Delusion is a belief in an illusion. See, and what is it that smashes delusions? Truth. Facts. Facts. Okay, back on 39. This is the point we wish to emphasize and re-emphasize, to smash home upon our what? Alcoholic readers. See, as opposed to what other kind of readers are there? Hard drinkers, moderate drinkers, see, the folks who think they're substance abusers and chemically dependent. See, we're not talking about that stuff. We're talking about real alcoholism here. It's the point we wish to emphasize and re-emphasize, to smash home upon our alcoholic readers as it has been revealed to us by reading Reader's Digest, Ladies' Home Journal. Now, what revealed it to them? Bitter experience. All right, look at your life. You got any bitter experience? Okay. Have you had any bitter experiences up to this point? See, might you have some more bitter experiences? See, what is it that convinces an alcoholic? See, has there ever been a sufficient reason? Can anybody else tell you you got a drinking problem or a drug problem? See, don't we all have the experience of lots of reasons, lots of people trying to help us, hugs, love, all that kind of stuff? What happened? We keep doing it. Financial insecurity, we keep doing it. Divorce, we keep doing it. Lose the house, keep doing it. Hey, I'll never get that bad, keep doing it. Now I'm on the streets, keep doing it. I'll never get that bad. Keep doing it. Conduct on through the years. Bitter experiences over and over. Look at your own experience. Okay, let us take another illustration. All right, now we're going to talk about Fred the accountant. Okay, now remember, see, as we're going through chapter 3 here, the examples they're giving us are different than the examples we found in the doctor's opinion. In the doctor's opinion, we found those two low-bottom guys named Hank Parkhurst and Fitz. See, those were two guys who had lost everything. See, they were real low-bottom drunks, had lost everything in life, and they found a solution. But here in chapter 3, what kind of guys do we see? Married, have wives, children, they got jobs. Nobody in the world would call them an alcoholic. They don't think they're an alcoholic. They don't look like an alcoholic. They don't meet all the stereotypes of alcoholism. The 30-year-old businessman, Jim the car salesman, and now Fred the accountant. Okay, Fred is partner in a well-known accounting firm. His income is good. He has a fine home, is happily married, and the father of promising children of college age. This guy hasn't lost much, has he? Okay, he has so attractive a personality that he makes friends with everyone. If ever there was a successful businessman, it is Fred. See, so this guy meets nobody's picture of what a real alcoholic looks like. So he's not a slime ball, he's not a convict, he's not any of that stuff, he's not the guy with this antisocial attitude, see, which is the way a lot of us look at what alcoholism is. It says, to all appearance, he's a stable, well-balanced individual, yet he is what? Alcoholic. We first saw Fred about a year ago in a hospital. Evidence, huh? In a hospital. Where he had gone to recover from a bad case of what? It was his first experience of this kind, and he was much ashamed of it. Far from admitting he was an alcoholic, he told himself, and where is he telling himself this? In his mind. Where's his main problem? In his mind. So he told himself that he came to the hospital to rest his nerves. Some of you were alive back in the 40s and the 50s. You might remember, even in those days, alcoholism was, had quite a social stigma to it. You wouldn't have, movie stars announcing their entry into the Betty Ford Center at all in the 50s. It used to be that when famous people went off to dry out somewhere, there would always be some kind of a press release that went something like, Marilyn Monroe suffering from exhaustion. Collapsed on stage from exhaustion. See, what that means is too fucking drunk to even walk. And they'd haul him off to some, they called them sanitariums in those days. And quite often the diagnosis given to people in that condition, suffering from their alcoholism, was a nervous breakdown. So exhaustion and nervous breakdown. Do you remember that? Anybody who was alive back in those days? Sure. Nobody admitted they were real alcoholics in those days. It wasn't socially cool to do that. Okay. So here's Fred, and he thinks he's having a nervous breakdown. The doctor intimated. Intimated means hinted. So it's almost a contradiction here. Hinted strongly that he might be worse than he realized. For a few days, he was depressed about his condition. He made up his what? Mind. To do what? Quit drinking altogether. Now, you notice in the previous examples, we had that 30-year-old business guy who went unnamed, and he didn't really want to stop drinking. He decided to postpone it. Okay? Then we saw Jim, the car salesman, and you can't even tell, based on the example, whether he really wanted to stop drinking or not. Okay? And here's Fred. Fred's different. He really does want to stop drinking. Fred's a lot like what we saw in Bill's story.